Punta lang natin yung loob ng Kamara dahil nagbibigay na ng kanyang talumpati itong si Speaker Belmonte.
Confident that, irrespective of our differing political affiliations, geographic or sectoral interest and persuasion, we will always stand strong and unified in our resolve not merely to consolidate the gains thus far realized, but to move towards our great future. I pledge before you, I pledge to honor your trust with a leadership that respects the voice of every member of this chamber in all proceedings and uphold the energy of this assembly as a democratic institution of government. Mula sa puso ko, maraming salamat sa inyong lahat at sa inyong pagtitiwala. At this point, I'd like to congratulate the new minority leader, Congressman Ronaldo Zamora of the Long District of San Juan, who happens to be my neighbor, actually. The 4th District of Quezon City adjoins the 1st District of San Juan. But that's about all I know about San Juan. Whether re-elected or as new members of this chamber, we all witnessed the back-breaking burden legislatures of this House bore to discard practices of the past and steer the country towards the proverbial matuwid na daan. In the past 3 years, it was this House which overhauled the appropriation process and built the habit of the prompt enactment of a transparent and responsive national budget. This House, which refused to shirk from the politically difficult task of impeachment, and this House, which fortified the constitutional promise of accountability in government. Our ratings achieved by this House in successive public trust surveys are not only historic, they are likewise indicative of the transformation of this institution, of our efforts to place our national constituency front, back, and center of our legislative agenda. The remarkable improvements in the country's competitive ratings, governance indicators, and corruption indices, the investment grade credit ratings achieved under President Aquino, and the economic growth posted last year and in the first quarter of this year, which are unsurpassed in this region, are extraordinary feats which we achieved even as the world around us grappled with a stale, if not contracting, international economy and immense political disturbances. The greatest error we can commit today is to mistake the past deeds of the past 3 years as ends in themselves, and not merely as a preview of greater things to come. Our task in the next 3 years must be to resist the costly temptation of resting on our laurels, to inspire greater belief in our collective capacity for greater accomplishment within our country and outside, and to marshal government resources towards making possible a more vibrant and resilient economy and people. In close collaboration with the Senate and the Executive, we will craft a legislative agenda that will generate greatest economic activity in our country. Economic activity that benefits the greater number. Economic activity that addresses, among others, the problems of poverty, unemployment, and investment. And if we stick to that goal, we will never go wrong. Reducing the impediments to the ease of doing business. reducing red tape. Even as we rationalize our incentives framework, meaning to say not one or two businesses monopolizes the incentives even when they do not need it, creating a more even and stable regulatory framework, hindi yung papalit-palit yung ating policies, that will rid the private sector of its fears from funding our economic expansion, especially in such critical areas as power and energy. And I hate to look the Mindanao legislators in the eyes as I say those words, but definitely we must find ways of solving the power and energy crisis, particularly in Mindanao, are essential if we are to sustain our growth and to employ the jobless. The habit of promptly enacting the national budget must be complemented by judiciousness in the use of public resources. The reprieve enjoyed by our people from additional taxes can be sustained without substantially impairing our future growth with expansion of efficiency in government spending, and that this should be further strengthened and institutionalized in our Appropriations Act and assiduously guarded through the oversight powers of the House. In the past, the oversight power has been just there. This time, let's try to exercise them. Greater investment in public infrastructure and facilities must be encouraged, simultaneously with our concern for prudence in the use of public resources. As we pass laws that deter and close the avenues for corruption, so must we gain greater confidence in using public resources to address and anticipate the needs of our expanding economy, our expanding population as well. We must nurture a legal ethos that mandates and extols prudence in spending and transparency and accountability in the use of public funds, especially in the use of our priority development assistance funds or PDAFs. Ambiguity must yield to specific, definite, and verifiable development programs and projects for both district and party list funded activities. Indeed, I have asked the party list, and I do challenge them to get together and come out with a plan on how to spend their PDAP. Because what are the rules? Let's have them. A strict obedience to a much tightened guidelines in the use of public resources is the strongest guarantee of efficiency, ensuring that each peso spent generates exponential returns for our people. For my part, my PDAF since first serving as member of this chamber in 1992 as a congressman were spent strictly within my district in Quezon City, subject always to public scrutiny and sometimes to public criticism. The 16th Congress concludes with the second half of President Pinoy's 6-year term. These 3 years are sometimes more difficult to manage because whiffs of the next election hang in the air. This time might not be too different. Nevertheless, I call upon all of you, my colleagues, to unite behind the administration's and our reform agenda in the interest of our people so that the 16th Congress, along with President Benigno S. Aquino's term of office, ends not with a strikeout, but with a home run or even a grand slam. Reforms in governance cannot be dictated. Government leaders must now augment our kung walang kurap, walang mahirap battle cry with walang kukurap, and marshal great support for the President's agenda towards a clean, honest, efficient, and responsive public bureaucracy. We must
Yan po ang
complete-
talumpati ni Speaker Sonny Belmonte na muling nahalal bilang leader ng Kamara. Nagpapasalamat siya sa kanya itiwalang muling ibinigay sa kanya ng kanyang mga kasamahan sa mababang kapulungan ng Kongreso. Ayon kay Speaker Belmonte, isang malaking hamon para sa kanya at sa mga kapwa mamabatas ang samantalahin ng magandang estado ng ekonomiya ng bansa para makagawa ng mga batas para muling o lalo pang palaguin ang ekonomiya. Dapat tinumanong hindi maging papalit-palit ang pulisiya ng bansa para makahikayat ng mga mamumuhunan. At habang nagpapasaraw sila ng mga batas para pigilan ang korupsyon ay dapat hindi rin makalimutan ang mga pulisiyang maniniguro sa tamang paggamit ng pondo lalo na sa kanilang mga pork barrel. At bilang tila pagbibigay ehemplo sa kanyang mga kapwa mambabatas, binanggit ni Speaker Belmonte na ang kanyang PDAF ay kanya lamang inilaan sa kanyang distrito.